Well, Aaron, first off, thank you for spending some time with me today. Obviously, we've known each other for a few years now, and I've always found your story and the Vestwell story to be intriguing. So appreciate you being willing to spend some time to share that with our viewers a bit.
Yeah, no, happy to be here. Good to see you as always. Yeah, happy to kind of dig in and share whatever we can here.
Well, let's get into it. Vestwell, of course, is doing a lot of things at once. It can be described as fintech infrastructure, and so it's behind the scenes in a way and not a consumer brand that's easily recognizable. But you have these large institutional partnerships with notable companies, JP Morgan, John Hancock. How do you explain what you've built to someone who's unfamiliar with Vestwell? So essentially that dinner party question that someone might ask you, what is Vestwell? How do you respond to that?
The short of it, what I say is kind of where the infrastructure behind the scenes powering savings for the country. We think about it, kind of taking a click lower, like the way I want Vestwell to be kind of received in the world is truly kind of be the engine for everyone, regardless of who it is, and meeting people where they are, but thinking about like how do we close the savings gap in the country? How do we create engagement, no matter who the entity is, whether it's an employer or it's an end saver? How do we create that motion, get people involved in saving? Is really kind of how I would explain it. But usually, I rarely go that deep at a dinner party.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And so, the company has obviously experienced some tremendous success over the years. You are our founder, chairman, CEO. Give us a rundown of the average day in the life of a CEO. How do you spend your time these days?
Oh, it varies pretty greatly. It depends on what's in flight. I am very much an outward facing CEO, right? So, a lot of conferences, a lot of dinners, a lot of investor engagements, calls. I'm on the road, you know, probably every other week, if not more, for a few days here and there. But my wife is also on the road a lot too with a couple kids, so it's a delicate balance between the household. A good portion of my day is doing meetings, right? I'm a big in person, so I'm usually, if I'm not on the road today, obviously we're sitting in a blizzard, so I'm not in the office, but usually I'm in the office if I'm not on the road meeting. So I'm probably doing six, 6 hours plus of meetings, maybe like, try 10, 12 meetings a day. And then I'll get a couple hours to, probably another 4 to 6 hours of like knocking stuff out time, actually doing the work. But I think the hardest thing as a CEO is the pivot you have to make between your conversations throughout the day and the decisions and where they sit, right? Could be anything from making an operational support decision to a marketing position to a pricing discussion to a contract, component that you're negotiating. So you're constantly pivoting like on a dime of where you need to be focused. And I think that's one of the most challenging things is like, no, I mean, it's great because no day is the same, but it's also like, oh wait, my head is not there right now. Let me rewire and focus there.
Yeah, I've read in other interviews you've done that coaching is an important model of leadership for you, and so really kind of being in it with your team, not just calling the plays from above. How does that manifest itself day to day for you?
I get pretty deeply involved in a lot. There's some things where I just can't, right? Like, hey, I'm just trusting you guys to make a decision and run with this. Um, I think, I'll go from 30,000 feet to ground floor pretty quickly. If I see something, a lot of times it's like something just doesn't smell right, and you just kind of like, that doesn't seem like it's right, right? And I'll dig in there pretty quickly and really start pulling on various threads. I think it can become intimidating to a lot of the team. They're like, "Oh, why is Aaron involved in this right now?" I largely it's because I think the one thing I'm good at, and there's not many things, right, is I can kind of draw that line between a lot of moving pieces and understand where they all line up together. Where it's, when you start going, as far as, deeper into the organization, it's really easy for people just to kind of view their role with blinders on. right? Like, here's my job, here's what I'm responsible for. I'm going to do that well. But they're not seeing outside of that. Well, as leaders, right, our job is to look across everything and encompass all the decisions. I try to bring that as much as possible to the table. It's almost like, hey, we're doing this. I'm like, okay, that's great. But have you ever thought about X, Y, and Z that may happen down the road? And how are we going to accommodate that so we don't go have to rebuild what we're doing today?
We'll get back to Vestwell here. I kind of want to shift just earlier career, earlier identity. On your LinkedIn, first job that pops up is Northern Trust Company. Curious how you first got into this space. How did you first, from a young age say, "Hey, this is what I wanna do." When did you decide that? Like, talk to us about that a little bit.
There wasn't. I mean, there was like I went to school as a finance undergrad. I thought, I like math a lot. I like the financial markets. I thought it was very interesting. I didn't grow up in this by any sense, right? My dad was a carpenter. My mom stayed at home with the kids. Um, and but I was always just kind of intrigued by that aspect. Northern Trust was interesting. It was basically like the first job offer I got, right, coming out of school, and was going to go back to Chicago where I grew up. So took the job kind of serendipitously. It was it was actually a job in large corporate ERISA pension design. I worked with, Fortune 500 companies on their plans, right? And their asset management, tracking and performance and all that stuff. I had, to do like 5,500 tax reporting, all these things that are like, part of my world today. I never would have been able to say that job would have led me to this, right? That would have been a plan. Um, so it was just kind of like, hey, get in the door and learn as much as you can, the good and the bad. And I always encourage people to. I'm like, people should take jobs that maybe aren't perfect for them. And you just have to. There's so much to be learned about what not to do as there is what to do. And I think people discount that in today's world. Often they're always like, "No, I need to do this, and I'm gonna wait until I find that perfect thing," which is great if they can do that. I needed a job, right? I had $0 in the bank account. I was like, I have a mountain of student debt hanging over my head, and I'm like, I got to work somewhere. So that was just kind of the first place in, and then things started to unfold, and then I started getting more curious, and I moved to New York and kind of things started to line up, but there was no grand plan or like some vision for what my career was going to look like. It was like, get a job and we'll figure it out.
Yeah, that's interesting that you mentioned that. Just, you don't have to have it all, I guess, planned out completely where step by step, this is what the next 10 years of my life is gonna look like. Was there, like, a moment for you in your career where you had to take a big risk or make that pivot or do a role that necessarily wasn't aligned for you on paper, but you felt some kind of pull toward?
Yeah, I mean, there were things. So there's a few different. I guess risk is relative, right, to where you are at that stage. I think risk number one was when we co-founded our last business, FolioDynamix. Um, you know, I had no idea how to raise capital, right? I had no idea like what entrepreneurship really was, right? It was just you had theories and stuff you learn in school. Um, but we had no cash. The business wasn't funded, right? So we're basically running it on credit cards. And just kind of like, hey, we'll figure this out. We'll raise money somewhere and make it happen. So like that was risky in that sense. But I didn't have kids. I wasn't married at the time. Like it was, so there's a level of risk you're willing to take on. And then when I was starting Vestwell, um, thankfully my wife was on board with trying to get this thing going, and she's like, "All right, you're on the clock, but go right." But she was pregnant with our son, um, and he was basically born right when we put on our first test plan onto Vestwell, right? So it was like, like I remember I was like in the delivery room and I'm getting phone calls and like had stepped out of the delivery room and like stuff like that. That was a risk because you're just kind of like, this has to work because there's no, we weren't making any money, right? We were grossly underpaid as startup entrepreneurs, and you're just like, this thing has to work. Like, there's no, I got a family now I'm gonna have to support, right? So that was, my wife always worked too, and she's a rock star and, had a great career, has a great career. But yeah, that to me is kind of the point where you're just like, all right, like, it's not just me anymore, right? Where you're just like, well, I'll figure it out on my own. This is like if you got other people depending on you in some aspect, and being a new dad, right? It's like, what are you gonna
Yeah,
do about
yeah,
those things? They're
for
all
sure.
big on you.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's funny. Yeah, what was that like, I guess, first starting FolioDynamix into your point of kinda having to fund it on your own and on credit cards and, like, kind of making that big bet on yourself in a way?
Well, Folio was interesting because we went out to raise our first round of financing in March of '08, right? So for those that were
Yeah.
around, and like, that's the whole, Wall Street collapsed.
Yeah, I get that.
And so no one wanted to go near anything financial related. We're like, "Hey, we're doing this fintech thing." They're like, "Get out." Right? We're not this. So that was a hard thing to overcome, right? But we were so convinced, we're like, "This is the right thing to do. We can make this work," that we were able to pull it off. Um, but those it was really difficult, right? We were at points where we're like, "Man, who's like," I couldn't pay my rent. I was like, "I'm gonna get evicted here soon if we can't do this." Um, and the guy I was doing it with, like, he was in the same boat, and we're just like, "Man, we're gonna be couch surfing for a while if we don't figure this out." But thankfully, it all came together at the 11th hour.
Yeah, what do you say to folks who are navigating that path to that journey? And, it could be as serious as doing in a startup or just something in terms of, hey, I'm trying to figure out if I should stick through this hard point in my career. Like, what do you kind of say as they're kind of navigating those tough decisions?
I mean, it's always hard, right? The good stuff, like, to attain is never easy, right? So I think you just have to have, you got to have thick skin in that, and just in the perseverance, and just focus on the outcome, because you're going to get hit side to side, like, with a bunch of things that you're not going to expect, or going to be, you know, underwhelming or negative outcomes. So all those things, I think you kind of have to accept out of the gate, like, hey, this stuff's going to happen, and kind of be true to yourself. Like, how are you going to respond? Right? There's no off button, right? There is. It's not like you come home and, you shut it down. Like, I come home, basically get my kids to bed, and then I'm back at work, right? And and that's truly it. Like, it is all consuming, especially for the first, and now we're a decade in, so, and we've scaled the business significantly. So, from that aspect, it's easier from, like, a day-to-day component. But, like, the early days, like, the wind could blow the wrong way and take you out entirely, right? And you're just riding on that hope that that wind doesn't turn against you. And it's a hard thing. Like, I don't think I could stomach that today, because it's what's I look back on it, and there's the fond memories of it, but you just have to be so determined, like, we are going to do this, and really be willing to do it all the time, no matter what. Like, I made myself, probably, some people say I make myself too available to others, because I'm just like, call me, like, I'd be on the phone at, you know, 12, 1, 2, 3 in the morning, right? Running through stuff with people, but just because I was just like, it's got to happen, because who else is going to do it? You have to be committed to do that. Like, there's some people that I've talked to that they don't operate like that. And, you know, I hope that they have fantastic businesses, but, like, for me, it was just kind of that drive of, like, that, almost like the competitive side. Like, I'm just gonna run as hard as I can, and no one's gonna stop me.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. You gotta kind of keep your head down in a way and kind of just roll with those punches. And to your point, nothing is easy in life, so it's just staying focused on your goals there.
You have to cancel the noise. Like, you just, anything, whether it's, people don't want to hear this, but, like, whether it's social aspects of your life, or even, like, social media or whatever, like, you just cut the noise. Like, you're just like, I'm not gonna even engage. Just kinda having that continued focus is a mode of operation that I think has been paramount to, helping get to where we are today.
Well, you had that successful exit with FolioDynamix, which led into you starting Vestwell. Like, talk about how you came to land on the business model that Vestwell uses today.
Honestly, the model was largely kind of the baseline and the learnings that I had from FolioDynamix. carried into this, right? Because I knew how to do, B2B enterprise, infrastructure plays. I knew the financial institution landscape well. The retirement savings side is definitely different than the wealth side, but there's a lot of corollaries with how they operate. And I was able to kind of draw that line and say, okay, this actually can function quite similarly. But it's funny, if you looked at the first deck I ever built to go raise money of what Vestwell was going to be, it is largely exactly what it is today. Like there were not like big pivots. I mean, it's grown a lot bigger. Like I didn't have, college savings in that program, right? Or disability savings. Those are all things that we kind of figured out at during the journey. But the macro kind of level thesis of what we are trying to go accomplish and go fix it in the economy has all been the same. Maybe you change some pricing structures or some of the stuff around the edges change, but the core of it is largely exactly the same. Actually, it's funny. We're actually deploying some things now that we had done in kind of our beta original rollout a decade ago that where we didn't quite know enough to make it stick, so we kind of shelved it. And all the several of those things are now coming back to life because now we know a lot better, a lot smarter on the business and the industry and what we need to happen. But the thing we're solved for is what we're doing again today.
That's pretty incredible. So yeah, so you had it right, I guess, early on in the
Right, right. We didn't know enough, right? Like we knew if we stuck with the box we built,
right.
it wouldn't have worked, right? But with the concept of what we're trying to solve for was still exactly the same.
Well, you obviously built a reputation as an industry expert and a strong operator. How did you make that leap from being in those camps to leading as a true CEO? What else did you have to go build in yourself?
I never looked at myself as like CEO leader. Like, when I was in grad school, and people were like, oh, yeah, I want to be CEO of this. I was kind of like, okay, I'm like, I just want to go do something I'm passionate about. I like solving problems, right? That's where like my drive comes from. But I like solving problems that have a positive impact on someone's life. Like I don't like fluff, right? Or like surface level things. Like it's like, no, I want to solve a core thing that could, really have a positive impact on someone's life. And that's, where I focus. Now, as far as like being a CEO and a leader, I I think all of that has been a learning curve for me, right? And it changes constantly. And I'm always pushing myself too to get I always tell myself like I want to put myself in an uncomfortable situation almost daily that is new to me, right? So I can continue to grow. Because like if you ask me, would I be managing, you know, the I don't know, we have probably close to 700 people now. Like would I'd be like, no, like that's not me. That's not what I'm doing, right? But as far as how you think about the team dynamics, all of that, you gotta have great people around you, right? Because it's um, so I think all of that's you just have to be really curious, and open to it. And again, I'm more like focused on the outcome for our clients, our users, our partners invest well.
Interesting. Okay. So kind of is it safe to say kind of more of that impact is are you thinking of whether it's your clients, your partners, so forth?
It's like, no, I'm not here to be like a people pleaser. I'm here to deliver what I promised to deliver. And that's all I really care about, right? So now, could I be a better CEO? Of course, right? We can all be better at everything, right? So so there's a lot of things that I try to pick up and learn and get better at, and I'm pretty self aware of where I fall short, and that's also kind of who I hire around me, right, to fill up those shortcomings.
Well, I mentioned the businesses experiencing tremendous success. There was the announcement that came out recently about the Series E with Blue Owl Capital and Sixth Street Growth. When did you realize that this idea had actually worked? Was there a specific moment, or was it more gradual? Like when did it click that hey, this is working?
There's always little proof points along the way, right? So like I think the initial piece when we were just rolling out like the beta version of the platform and kind of testing, I was calling on people that I knew from the industry, right, from my last life, and say, "Hey, would you use this? Like, what just kind of tell me what you like, what you don't like. How do you think about this space?" So I got a lot of interest, right? where people are like, "Yeah, I like that. Like, that's great. I have folks on my team who do this or I don't, and we're curious about getting into the space." Uh, like, that was great. Then it's like, okay, now make it work, right? Where you can actually build sustainable union economics around it. That's hard, right? I remember one investor, from our seed days, and, they're still a very large investor in the business. He's like, "Are you ever gonna make money in this company?" Right? And and I was like, "It will happen, like, just but it's a very long road that we're going down." Like, I did not go set up a business to be the quick kind of flash, "This is awesome," and, and then you kind of hang out in kind of steady state, business growth. I was like, no, we're going to really just do it the right way, take the long road, and then we'll be able to, carry the fruits of that or yield the fruits of that on the backside. Now that takes a lot of patience from investors, from the team. I feel like we're a decade in and we're like just now having the really fun part of the journey. Right. But there were some things like I think when we first signed Morgan Stanley, that was a big proof point. We're like, okay, we can do this. This is a playbook we could run elsewhere. And then we've continued to bring on partners and aspects of this where now we're like, okay, we've earned the right to win. Now let's go win. And I still think that's probably pretty new in the last probably couple of years. And when we first I think when we rebuilt the platform, built the sub accounting, from the ground up, um, and then when we were able to convert all the business and really kind of see how we are more successful when we control all the dynamics in the equation, that was kind of the moment I was like, "Okay, we got this."
That's interesting. And so despite the incredible success, is there a part of you or part of the business rather that keeps you up at night? Like, is there something that you kinda think about pretty often?
No, but there always has been. I mean, when we were doing this acquisition recently and raising, like, I I didn't sleep at all. I mean, I went an entire week, and I think I slept 14 hours in 7 days. Um, and and I was on the phone, up it didn't matter what hour. Like, I lay down in bed and immediately just pop right back up and, it's like, "Okay, back to" "Gotta get to this call," or whatever. Uh, and, so, like, those things will happen where they're a grind, and they're exhausting. They're really tiring, but there's not like an aspect to this business. So I feel really confident in our team. I think our team is so good at executing. Like the thing, ideas are easy, right? You can come with an idea second. The execution is always the hardest part. So you need people who you just know can execute always, right? And that because that's the crux of it, right? At the end of the day, the business doesn't work if you don't execute. So I think having that confidence in our team and our ability to execute even the hardest situations, it really like that's what makes me super bullish. It's why I can sleep a bit more now. And things don't go your way all the time. Like we've had a number of things. It's funny. I was writing our kind of year end readout to the team at the end of this of 25 and I called out all the things that didn't go right, right? Because we had a great year last year. We had a banner year. It was awesome. But there were so many other things that didn't go right that you quickly forget about. And I'm like, well, now if all those things did go our way, imagine where we could have got to, right? And like I think it's important to be honest with yourself. Like it's not all high fives and like, nailed it. Like, hey, cool. But we also did a lot of things that we could have done better. And let's also think about how we can bring those to a positive light this year and stick it. And that stuff happens. And a lot of it too happens for a reason. And thankfully we've always come out of the right side of it. But I think about those things often.
Interesting. Yeah, talking about the team is a good segue. I wanted to spend some time on the talent side of the equation. And, you've experienced a bit of a non-linear path to the C-suite, founding companies in your past life and current life. How has that shaped your hiring strategy? Does it make you more or less patient with people whose careers don't follow a straight line?
I'm not impatient with how their careers play out, obviously. I'm not a patient person though, typically. So, to be completely honest. And I think that's what also kind of drives our growth, right? Because I'm running hard, and I always just expect people to keep up, right? Um, I also am I love really talented people who want the accountability and the ownership to go do something in the agency to go do it. Uh, and we really try to instill that in the team. Like, hey, you can run. Like, we're not going to hold you back. There's not, 9 levels of approval processes to go do something. Like, it's hey, you want to do something? Let's chat about it for a second, and if we're all good, like, okay, it's off. Go do it. Um, and I think that's important, right? It's like I don't know if I would be a successful CEO in a Fortune 500 business, right? Because there's too many roadblocks and friction points, and people are worried about their careers, and I'm just like, no, let's just go solve this problem, and we're all going to benefit from it. So go make it happen and do it quickly. And I think that's really important. Like when I look at talent, I don't want people who have grown up in this industry for their entire career, or they've sat at these large organizations their whole career. Because I think they have a really tough time adapting to an environment like Vestwell. Because it's like, hey, you got to go now. This is not a 9 to 5 job. You may get a phone call at hours where you'd rather be sleeping, and I'm going to expect you to answer. And we're going because we have a limited moment to go fix this. Like, let's make it happen. And I think that urgency is super important for people to carry. But I don't care if they've I want people who are knowledgeable in the space, they're curious about it, but it's like you can learn this stuff, right? And you need a couple experts floating around there who can opine on some of the nuances of the space. But largely, like we are not, if you look at everyone's profile of the organization, it probably doesn't look very similar to most of the people in this industry.
Yeah, I think that's fair. There's definitely we see it all the time in our searches. There's different archetypes of candidates from VC backed companies versus a public company that's been around for 100 years versus a private equity backed company that's in kind of an earlier stage. So there's definitely different flavors of candidates and profiles. And with your company especially that's innovating and growing so fast, I'm curious how you approach kind of hiring that talent? Like, do you rely on internal teams for that? Do you rely on search firms? Do you have other connections that kind of bring in some of this talent that you're talking about?
Our head of people, Patty Kim, she's incredible. Like she's just incredible. She's wired very similar to me and how she works with folks. So I've kind of like full trust in her. She's built out an awesome team. We have a bunch of in-house recruiters. We'll use external recruiters at times as well. It really depends on what the role is and where it is. Um, Sadly, I don't get well, I don't know if it's sadder now, but I don't get involved that much in the hiring process anymore. Unless they're like obviously on my direct executive team or like an SVP or someone below that, then I'll get involved in the last few candidates. Um, but other than that, no, I'm pretty I think large testament to Patty, she's built out an ethos that I think is permeated across the team. Uh, Now, that being said, it's not like a set it and forget it thing, right? You have to constantly reinstill these things, and the bigger you get, you have to say it 1,000 times before it sticks. Um, but but I think largely we have a culture that can manifest, and continue down this track that we're on right now. But you still got to keep people. You got to stay close to it, right? And I see a lot of people in the office, and it oddly because like it's weird, very uncomfortable for me because like I don't know everyone anymore, right? Like that stopped a while ago, and now kind of like I look at people, and before I had a very I think pretty distilled opinion on everyone in the company, but I don't anymore because I just don't know them. So you have to really rely on the team.
Yeah, that must be like a weird feeling, but also rewarding in some ways just to seeing how the company has changed. But yeah, that's probably unique.
It is. It is. I mean, I wish, I think a lot of entrepreneurs say this. Like you go back to like the earlier days, or, like the 150, the 150 cutoff is pretty true. Where like that's where you stop knowing everyone.
Mhm.
Um, and I do miss the days where I could go back and really know everyone. But you do also get proud that like, okay, the machine is running,
Right.
and it's working quite well.
Yeah, yeah. So when to the other CEOs or chief people officers listening to this, what is the biggest mistake organizations can make when hiring senior leaders?
I think you always have to be ready, willing, and able to cut someone as fast as possible. As scary as that is, and I am, one of those where hire fast, fire faster, and and we're not shy about it. Like we'll work people out of the company very quickly, um, and I think that's okay, and it scares people sometimes. Where they're like, "Oh, I can't lose that person right now," or where they're or well, I think they're gonna get there. I think they're gonna get better. Let's give them a chance. I'm one of those that's kind of like, no, like there's incredible talent out there, and I think you have to. It is very important to surround yourself with people who know what incredible talent looks like. And it's not always obvious, but there are people that we've brought on who have made come from large organizations. They've kind of worked with like that good, like a higher level of mediocre talent, and they think that's okay. And maybe for those other organizations it is, but like I'm like, I don't want that at Vestwell. I want the best. And if you don't know what the best is, I'll go find it for you and show you. But you need that calibration, and you have to be okay with the uncomfortableness of saying, we're just going to let someone go. We're going to have a gap in the organization right now, and we'll figure it out. And once that new talent comes on, that is that next level, you immediately are just like, why did I wait so long to get rid of that other person? Right? It happens so often, right? It's very easy for people just to hang on for comfort factors and knowing someone's in the seat when you know they're not the right person.
That's a good point just about the talent that's out there. I think oftentimes we work with clients and companies that are more forward leaning or kind of leading in their category ahead of the pack. Sometimes it becomes difficult. They think like they can't find someone who's better than what they have today because they are at the top. But to your point, there are always companies that are doing something different. There's someone who is at a competitor who they want to go to your company because they see that what you guys are doing is unique or differentiated. But yeah, I do think there is sometimes that fear that there's not good enough talent out there, but there really is.
No, there's always someone who wants to jump in that can be so additive to your company. Like I don't want to name names, right? But there's a lot of people that have come and gone within Vestwell over the years that or maybe they're great for a moment, right? But you outgrow their abilities, right? Or they can't keep up with the growth of the firm. That happens a lot, especially like a business like ours. Like when you're going from, basically a PowerPoint to, several hundred people in a company, not everyone can continue to up level themselves along that journey. Right. I even challenge myself sometimes, right? I'm like, hey, am I the right person at this stage to be doing this? Right. And well, what do I have to learn to be that right person? Um, and you have to be really conscious of that versus people like, "Oh, I've just been here a long time, so I deserve it."
And when you look at people coming up inside Vestwell, how do you know when someone is ready for a leap that's bigger than anything they've done before?
That's a great question. So there's a couple ways that we do it. Like, so for some of the younger not necessarily younger, but like let's say they're a few levels down in the org chart, we'll put together we have like a high performing cohort, right? Well, they'll come in, they'll um they'll present ideas or thoughts they have of something that could be impactful to the business in whatever way, right, or the clients and what the market needs. So we go through a pretty stringent evaluation process of all of that. We'll put together a cohort and we'll let them run and say, okay, go do it. Right? What do you need to do it? What are the resources? And then they go and do it. I think that's a great testing ground for those things, right? Can they can they really get buy-in and from other parts of the organization to do this, right? Will people look at them like leadership, like a leader that can go execute and kind of get people to follow them? So we put those together. It's been newer in the last couple of years, but it's been awesome to see, right? And you kind of identify the young talent that way. The other side is honestly for some of it is just kind of like a gut like feel. Like you work with it, look how many people you've hired in your career, right? There's certain people you're like, they'll figure it out, right? Like we brought on some people where it's maybe a step up role for them. Like let's say they're a VP somewhere and they're coming in as SVP, or some of those have been bets. Well, I'm like, okay, here's what excellent looks like. Here's what excellent's going to cost. Here's maybe a step down, but someone you think is going to grow into that excellent that also has just kind of that drive and ambition to prove themselves. And I like that a lot. Right. Those are the people that I'm like, yeah, like when they come in and they're able to perform, it makes me really happy for them and obviously for the organization. We're like, yes, they're nailing it.
Exactly. Yeah, no, we deal with that all the time too from the search side where, we talk to the clients about wanting someone who's in the seat versus that step up candidate and what does that look like? Why do they want someone who has a title versus a step up? And yeah, I mean, obviously everyone has to take that step in their career in order to get to that level that they want to. And so the question is when do you want to bet on this person and why? And so we try to help our clients understand that too, that some of these candidates that just because they don't have the, let's say, CTO title doesn't mean that they are not right to be your CTO.
Yeah, no, definitely. And we all listen, no one started at the top, right? It's like we've all worked our way, through these things. So I think there's a lot to be said for that. And yeah, do they have the drive and ambition to continue to do that? Or like the what I don't want is like someone who comes in and it's like, okay, my job is to be maybe the talking head and I'm gonna go hire this army of people underneath to do the work. I'm like, no, I want someone who's like gonna get your hands dirty. Like I get my hands really dirty still, right? I'm not like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go, take vacations and do this. Like we still hardly ever. I think my first 7 years at Vestwell, I think I took a week off total, right? And so there's like you're just like, and I'm still this just wired that way, right? And thankfully my wife is wired similarly to me, so it works well, right? We're like, hey, we're good to go. So but I think that's really important to just to be conscious of like who do you really want? Like who's going to be able to like get the rally around them from the rest of the team? And you gotta trust the people too. And if you don't have trust, that's hard, right? The trust if someone is not trusted in the organization, it is very difficult to manage. So I think there's all these little cues of people that I think are very important just to keep a pulse on.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Aaron. This has been an incredible conversation. Appreciate you sharing the story of Vestwell and some of these insights with our listeners.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's good to see you. Appreciate the time.